Yeah. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by both AJ Haefele and Evan Rawal, as we have a little bit of a big episode for y'all today. Obviously, Ryan Graves traded last night to the New Jersey Devils for a second-round pick in this year's entry draft and Mikhail Maltsev. So we're going to break it all down, not only the trade, but the impacts it's likely to have on the rest of the Avs offseason, as I think there's going to be certainly a little bit of a ripple effect here based on this trade. Let's start with Graves. Obviously, someone we talked about being a potential trade option for the Avs. Fairly straightforward to replace him, correct, Evan?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the penalty killing, they'll probably be able to find somebody to do that, but they have options inside the organization for sure. They got Byram sitting around who they didn't even play in the playoffs. They definitely have options, and AJ's hinted at this. This has been something they've been looking at for a while, so no big surprise here.
All right. Pretty straightforward on that front. On the return, AJ, about what you expected, a second-round pick and a guy with, 33 NHL games played so far?
What's that?
The return for Ryan Graves, about what you would expect?
Higher than I expected, to be honest. The second round pick at the very end of the second round would have been good for me. That they got a guy that's going to come in, and you and I were watching him last night, and we're like,
he's got maybe decent stuff going on, yeah.
Maybe there's something there. The 6 goals that he scored were
a little all over the place, for sure. But
it was definitely a little like a Brandon Yip's Van Andrighetto. Like, it looks good on paper, but when you actually go and watch him, you're kind of like, these are a little nonsensy. But I mean, you take them however you can get them. But no, I think they did a good job, and as we're going to get into, Maltsev is pro scouting. He's a pro scouting find, and a guy that they are very likely to give a real opportunity to.
Super chat from Let's Go Avs saying Avs already got more for Graves than they gave up for Taves. Debatable, I suppose, but they gave up 2 seconds for Taves. They got a second and presumably an NHL roster player out of Ryan Graves. Certainly not bad.
I mean, they got a borderline guy here.
Yeah.
And a borderline guy in the last year of his ELC. So if he works out, they have RFA control for the next couple of years. If he doesn't, they can just not give him a qualifying offer next year and move on. And he's a trivia question someday. So that's pretty good for me.
All right. Well, no complaints on that side of it. Obviously, a big portion of this conversation with Graves is he was getting paid $3.1 and change million. Maltsev is making $800K for the next year, so round it down to what, 2.25, say, that the Avs have saved on their cap hit, and they're still going to lose someone in expansion. Evan, where do you expect this money to be put towards? Is this helping them get a Landy deal done? Is this looking outside the organization for a different piece? What do you think?
Well, you certainly think that this is part of the whole bringing back all the other guys portion, and then we'll find out the rest of that part next week. Because if they lose a guy like Donskoy or Comfer in the expansion draft, then suddenly things get a little bit easier to negotiate with. You got more money. But yeah, I mean, there's still, we can totally expect somebody to get signed on that defense. So that money is going to get used there a little bit. So, yeah, it's better to get some for a guy that you were, obviously they knew they were going to lose him on next week. So get something for him now. And clearly he had value around the league. I know I'm not a huge Graves fan. I know a lot of people were super down on him, especially after Game 5. But the reality is he's an NHL defenseman, big body, and he's still relatively young. So he obviously had value, and this is just a smart move by Sakic, knowing that you're going to lose this guy for nothing and get something for him, and then at the same time open up space to potentially bring back some of the big guys.
All right. Pretty straightforward work there. As you kind of alluded to, is that the expectation now? AJ, I know you talked that the Avs were potentially considering 8 skaters. I assume that's out the window with Graves no longer in the picture.
That's done.
Yeah, I figured. So they're probably looking at losing one of Comfer or Donskoy, or if they don't want to protect him, maybe Nichushkin in expansion.
Yeah, I mean, we're right back to where we have been all year, except without the Ryan Graves factor here. We're right back to looking at the forwards. The forward conversation is exactly the same.
Yep.
If Seattle doesn't want to continue to take money, then maybe they look at Logan O'Connor. Maybe they look at Brandon Saad, and get into. Give him a free agent deal, and he's one of the guys. Like, they take advantage of the negotiating window. You know, like those are. I still think it's Comfort, Donskoy. After that, I think Saad would be the guy that makes the most sense. If they take Logan O'Connor, we all kind of are just going to shrug and say that sucks, because we've been excited about Logan O'Connor for the last year or so, and he had looked like a guy that had really solidified a roster spot. But that's still a hard fourth line guy, and even though his money would be fine, you don't want to lose a guy on a $725,000 contract. Replacing him, you would just do it with a guy on an ELC, so it would not be overly problematic if that's the guy.
Yeah,
I have a really hard time believing that they would take Logan O'Connor over Jonas Donskoy.
That's what I was going to say. Is that they probably have the choice of 5 or 6 Logan O'Connors come Wednesday night. So,
and they don't have very many options like Jonas Donskoy, or, to be honest, a Brandon Saad.
Yeah,
35+ point players on the forward side.
Yeah,
not a ton out there.
The most disappointing thing is if they did take O'Connor, because then you're kind of banking on them taking a bigger contract to help out the team. O'Connor is he's almost 20. He's 25 now, so it's not like he's a super young guy himself, but that would be the disappointing part, is that, you know, maybe the Avs were banking on getting a little bit more space here to maneuver here.
Yeah,
that would certainly be the disappointment with LOC. Otherwise, if they take Saad, they don't lose any money, and they just lose a guy, and that guy's just gone. So I'm, you know, that's a possibility, but they could always talk to Saad and figure out kind of what he wants parameter wise for the contract. Take Donskoy and then sign Saad in 5 days.
Wait a week and sign Saad also.
Yeah,
definitely an option for them there. Would there still be any interest from the Avs in maybe throwing something Seattle's way? If, let's say, Seattle was interested in O'Connor, throw a pick their way to get him to take a Comfer or Donskoy? I'm
just like what I said yesterday. If I'm throwing a pick at Seattle for them to do something specific, it's to take Eric Johnson. Okay. I'm losing that $6 million.
All right.
And then right now EJ's more valuable to the Avs today than he was yesterday, because he would be the guy that would step up and take the penalty killing and second pairing role next to Sam Girard that we saw Graves at the end of the year, but he's not reliable health wise. So for me, that's if you're doing that, it has to be EJ. I'm not paying to lose Donskoy or Comfer.
All right, makes plenty of sense there. Let's get back into the actual Graves trade, because this is the main topic of the day here. Key piece being, well, in the immediate, the more relevant piece is the second round pick. The Avs now have a first, second, and third in the upcoming draft. What was starting to look like a draft almost entirely irrelevant to the Avs, suddenly they have 3 top 100 picks, and there's going to be a little bit more interest in how they shape up their prospect pool, I think. So what are the expectations that they take these 3 picks and make them, or will they still look to potentially move some of these picks?
I mean, if they find an avenue that can help them, man, those picks are going to be in play.
Okay.
But for right now, I think the focus in the immediate future is figure out, solidify what's going to happen with Seattle next week. And then just let it happen. And then after that, if Donskoy's gone, if Comfer's gone, then they have to readjust on the fly. They've got to figure out a guy. And they will have to replace that guy in their lineup. It's not like that guy is he's gone, and the money just disappears. Voila! You still have to go out and get a guy. And that's where Colorado's depth is going to take a hit. I expect Colorado to be deeper on defense this next season, but struggle more in their bottom 6. Certainly early on, as I think they're going to have to rely on Alex Newhook, Sampo Ranta, Mikhail Maltsev, Andreas Wingerly, Shane Bowers, Martin Kaut. They're going to have to rely on those guys.
All right. It's going to be interesting. We can talk a little bit more about those guys in the second period, but we do need to let you guys know, look, the Avs play in Ball Arena. If you want to work for Ball Corporation, they are hiring right now. You can get in with these guys, and you can text Golden to 77222 or go online. Check them out. Highly recommend. They offer a bunch of jobs out in Golden right now. You can go to jobs.ball.com and search Golden as well if you prefer to find them that way. Look, they pay a living wage. Their jobs are awesome. They do a whole lot more than just work with aluminum cans as well. They also work in the aerospace industry. They have satellites that monitor the Earth and some of its resources. Bunch of awesome stuff if you haven't looked into them yet. Highly recommend you go to these guys, see what they have. Good pay, good work, kind of awesome company. Check them out. Get hired. Get yourself some money so you can give us an annual membership here at DNVR, because we're cool, I guess. Look, if we get enough annual memberships, eventually we're going to make couch stickers. That's all I'm saying.
I think we need to do it anyway. We can add a sticker of me being in jail too.
There you go. AJ in Twitter jail, Evan's couch, a pair of jorts. We got a whole sticker pack planned at this point. So we need those
banana pants.
Banana pants, exactly right. So head on over to thednvr.com. Check out our exclusive content. You also get access to the lounge. An annual membership gets you a free shirt as well. A bunch of awesome stuff. Help support us and support our partners, such as DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's do this for our pick of the week, our DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week. Who are you two taking, Phoenix or Milwaukee, in the NBA Finals?
Milwaukee.
I was going to say Phoenix.
All right,
because they got home almost said home ice, home court. It seems like all that's mattered so far.
We got our split picks for pick of the week. 1 Phoenix, 1 Milwaukee. You can head on over to DraftKings Sportsbook now and bet on the NBA Finals. If you sign up with code DNVR with a new account, you can bet $1 on either of those teams to win their next game and earn yourself $150. So it is a great time to get in on DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet on those NBA Finals. Either Evan or AJ will be right. One of their picks of the week has to be correct. There's only 2 teams. So someone's going to be right and someone's going to be wrong on this one. Pick your favorite. Go with it. Get on that. If basketball's not your thing, of course, you can bet on pretty much any other sport in the world. There are tons of options, including, let's see what we have here. We have darts, we have motorsports, lacrosse, handball, Gaelic hurling, Gaelic football, cricket, cornhole, beach volleyball, a whole lots of other things. Oh yes, their Olympic bets are coming up. Let's go. All right, so lots of choices for you to bet on right now. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Get it in on it. For more details, check DraftKings.com/sportsbook. The first $1 bet for $150 is paid out in site credits. And if you have a gambling problem, of course, call 1-800-522-4700. Someone can't tell the difference between Evan's couch and a casting couch, but he's taking Bucks and 6.
Oh, God.
Second period.
Stop ruining my couch.
Of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's talk about Mikhail Maltsev a little bit. Looked into him last night. I know AJ looked into his fancy stats as well. Look, obviously there's some enticing things here. Dude's 6'3", 220 pounds. He has some good size. Is a solid skater. This, to me, this seems like a guy that's pretty easy to drop into your fourth line, your bottom 6 somewhere. You guys agree?
Yep.
Would appear so. I believe I said last week that New Jersey is my least watched team in the NHL. So when they traded for that guy, I was like, I have no idea who this man is. So, but yes, I did look at his analytics. It seems like he's got decent underlying numbers, considering everything too.
They're okay.
He's 23 years old. He has 33 games of NHL experience. He scored 9 points in that time. He also played in the AHL in 1920, played 49 games there, but has spent most of his career in Russia, playing in both the KHL and the VHL. Made the jump pretty quickly to the NHL when he came over, though. So certainly an interesting guy. AJ, I know you watched some of him. What did you like?
I mean, obviously the thing that sticks out when you look at him, it's the size, right?
Yep.
Like he's 6'3". He doesn't look really big. Like he's not hulking. You know, you don't look at him and you're like, oh my god, look at that monster out there.
Not 6'6" or anything crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and he's not. I mean, he's not built like Val Nichushkin. You know, it's obvious that his post game routine doesn't immediately involve lifting weights. But I like this. I like the size. I would like to sit down and actually get a deeper look and look at some of the shift by shift stuff to see how he uses it. But he's got good size, and honestly, it was not hard to see what Colorado liked in him because he's a pretty good skater for a guy that big. He moved up and down the ice pretty well.
All right. Y'all be the judge. Male model status or no? What do we got here?
I mean, not a great picture.
We can find a different one.
I said before, it's just a miracle that they got a Russian who will do press conferences.
Yeah, actually speaks English.
Yeah.
In front of the camera.
Yeah, well, he's in Colorado now, so he doesn't have to talk to the media ever again.
True. All right. Well, we'll find another picture. We'll try and find one that looks a little better.
It is. I mean, the Avs Pro Scouting has been doing a pretty good job. You know, maybe the trade deadline this year notwithstanding. The last few years, just finding guys like Nichushkin, they saw a fit there and it ended up working out. It's probably not a coincidence that they go out and get this guy after announcing that Belmar's not coming back pretty much. So
this is also a deeper cut than Nichushkin because
Yeah.
Nichushkin was multiple years in the NHL, top 10 pick. Like there was a novel of scouting reports on that guy. This is a lot more of your Jacob McDonald style find here. Does he play as well as McDonald did last year? Is he legit? Does he stick around? All questions to be answered, but that's the staff that dug this guy up.
All right, here you go. Here he is in a suit. Is that better? Is that more modelly?
Sure.
yeah, I guess.
I mean, I don't think he's a bad looking guy.
All right. Well, we'll put him on the maybe list, I guess. In any case, yeah, as you guys were talking about, various ways for him to drop into the lineup fairly easily, whether it be Belmar or Calvert no longer being contracted by the Avs. Only 23 as well. I think it's a little bit curious. As AJ said, they could just let him walk if he doesn't have a fit on the team, but this potentially is another guy that could fill a role on the bottom six for a handful of years for relatively cheap, depending on how things go this year.
Yeah.
So
Sakic at the deadline did say that they're going to need cheap players next year, and it seems like they're just stacking up on them. Like, we're going to need as many as we need and figure out who can win the job.
Yep.
Spencer from the Super Chat asks, this doesn't guarantee anything, but does this trade make it more likely that the Avs can sign Ryan Suter? I don't think he blocks anybody on D. Again, it's going to kind of depend, right? You have the Avs top 3D, Gerard McCarr and Taves. You have Byram. You have if EJ's healthy. And then you have Timmins. How do you feel about Jacob McDonald? Do the Avs want to target Suter? Or do they want to target like a Jamie Alexiak, as AJ has talked about Larson as well?
Today, Vancouver, Alex Edler is going to be getting to market.
So there's options out there.
That's a guy that I know he's 100 years old, but that's a guy that he played really tough minutes last year for a not very good Canucks team, and he held his own. They could shelter him a little bit more in Colorado. I would be more interested in Alex Edler than Ryan Suter.
All right.
Personally. But throw his name onto the pile.
I think there's a handful of guys I'd rather have than Suter, to be honest, but it's going to depend on price and options, of course.
I think people expecting Suter to go cheaper, maybe thinking a little too, I guess. I don't think that's what's going to happen, essentially.
I mean, I think he'll get his options. I think he'll get opportunities where he'll get real money. But I also think that there's going to be a Colorado-like offer where the team can't pay very much, but they're one of the more competitive teams in the league. And again, he's going to make. I did the math on. He's going to end up making 95 of the $98 million that Minnesota owes him. So he just doesn't need. He doesn't need to chase the money. If it's there and he wants it and it's a fit he likes, great. But he's going to have an opportunity to say, I left more money on the table to come play wherever he ends up.
Look, revenge is a great motivator, right? and clearly things didn't end well between him and Minnesota. So
yeah, when you hang up on your GM,
not a good feel. So you never know what a player's motivations might be with signing with a certain team. But to Evan's point, I think there are going to be most teams in the league giving a call on Suter and seeing what the option is. It's not like the Avs are going to be the only team asking about him. So he'll have his choice to make. Through the rest of this trade, I know we have some of Maltsev's advanced stats here, AJ. If you wanna walk us through those a little bit.
Yeah. So the first one is just Okay, this is fine. No, we can bring that back. Bring that bad boy back. With Maltsev, not great. He's not driving play. Without Maltsev, their offense is still bad. So it's not super encouraging. This doesn't sell you on it. This does not jump off the ice off the page to you. This isn't super encouraging. He's not driving play
For sure. Whole lot of certainly looks like he plays left wing. Put it that way.
Yeah. The next one, do we have his defensive one? Okay, it's exactly the same.
Yep. Literally no change in the team's defensive output.
Yeah, and the -6 is a good number, so that's encouraging. That he's not making he didn't make the Devils any worse when he was out there. They were fine. They did okay. For the role he's likely going to play in Colorado, defensively is more important than offensively. You don't want a guy that hemorrhages shots against. You want a guy that has better shot suppression. And if he doesn't drive play, well, he's a fourth liner. Not many do.
Yeah, you can live with a lack of play driving on your fourth line for sure, especially if there's a willingness to do the dirty work too.
Gil, do you have his overall summary? There it is. Really exciting looking. Doesn't drive play, doesn't give much up. Right around league average. For $800,000, this is a fine bet. And then Kale, if you could, our last one here. Not a lot of minutes, not a ton of information here, but it's fine. Like, this is, for a fourth line guy, these numbers are perfectly acceptable.
Yep. Almost a prototypical dude you put on your fourth line that doesn't hurt you, right?
Yep, and how much he helps, how much he fits in, all of that is kind of to be determined. How competitive is he? Does he bring it every shift? Does he play physically? Because you could see that guy on the left side, Logan O'Connor on the right side, and JT Compher in the middle. And that's your opening night fourth line. It's not hard to envision that.
And yeah, between Logan O'Connor and him on the wings, if you have those two zipping around, speed, he can bring some size to that type of line.
Yeah, I want to know how he uses the size, because if he gets in and he uses it well and he bangs and he goes hard, great.
Yep.
That's great. That's exactly what that line needs. It needs an injection of competitiveness. It got, when it was in the postseason with Belmar and Soderberg, and it got a little too soft for my liking for a fourth line. This question, is he Kamenev 2.0? We'll see.
Hopefully not, right?
The problem
is the opposite of what they want out of him.
Exactly. The problem with Kamenev is that he was not competitive shift to shift. It's the biggest reason why we haven't seen Martin Kaut stick in the NHL. It's, you need guys that are going to bring it every single time they touch the ice. And Kamenev was a skilled guy that might have been able to work his way up the lineup given time, but he ran out of it in Colorado, and nobody seems to be in a big hurry to give him another opportunity. It was too soft, and that was the skill. The skill didn't show up often enough, and that's where the downfall is for a lot of guys that make the NHL in these bottom sixes. Is they make the NHL as guys who have been skill guys their whole lives, and they can't adjust to role player. This kid has to adjust to being a role player.
For what it's worth, if you look at his career path, it should be something that he knows how to
do. He's not been a top six guy very much in his personal career.
Yeah, this is a guy who was scoring half a point per game in the VHL, getting handful of games in the KHL over the last couple of years, but not a ton. So he's kind of on the edges of that roster. Put up decent numbers in the AHL, but spent half of last year playing in New Jersey's bottom six. So this should be a guy that knows what's going to be expected of him in a bottom six role.
Yep.
So
I love that all these people in the comments are upset about the Habs fan, and they keep talking to him.
Comments popping off. Evan, what are your expectations there? I know you were the one that coined the Shane Bednar nickname.
That didn't work out.
Well, I'm saying adding a Maltsev, how much harder does that make it for guys like Kaut and Bowers to find a way into the lineup?
At this point, it's just a competition. Like they have, like I said, a lot of bodies that potentially could play minutes. The Avs played 65,000 forwards last year. Yeah. You would think eventually Bowers will get his chance, and with a real training camp, maybe in real preseason, which 6 games. I'm not looking forward to 6 preseason games again. But a guy like Shane Bowers probably can't wait because he didn't get that chance last year. And we know that 2 years ago he did impress Bednar in the preseason. So the preseason and training camp is really what's it's going to come down to. And these guys didn't really get that last year, and you should expect them to, this is a make or break year. This is what Kaut's, was it his 4th, 5th year in North America? I'm losing track at this point.
4th,
I believe. Yep.
And Bowers is entering his 3rd professional season. Like, this is make or break time for these guys. Like, that's just the reality of it. They need to see more consistency, and Bednar made that pretty clear with Kaut, and I would imagine they've done the same thing with Bowers because he has not sniffed the NHL yet.
All right. Is there any conversation about like Sampo Ranta having jumped over these guys?
Yeah. So they threw the guy into the playoffs. Obviously, they like something there.
I mean, it's not just Sampo, but I mean, Alex Newhook's ahead of all these guys.
I mean, that one was a given, I think. Yeah.
But Sampo's a guy that, look, it's hard. You don't want to come down too hard on him because that was a big jump for him to play a week in the AHL and then jump into the NHL playoffs. That
Definitely
was a lot.
2 bad games, though.
But he looked
lost,
completely unprepared.
Yeah.
So I would say the guys like Bowers and Kaut are probably ahead of Sampo right now. But if Ranta has the kind of training camp that they would hope that he has, where he comes in motivated and competing with some of the other young guys and said, I'm gonna put all of my natural talent on display and just let the chips fall where they may. It's really not that hard to envision a world where he makes the club.
So, as AJ alluded to earlier, we're realistically talking about a 6, 7, 8-person battle in training camp for the Avs' last couple of roster spots on the forward side. Who do you have as locks down there? Like, obviously the everyday players are on there, but probably Logan O'Connor is the most locked in for a roster spot, I would say.
Right now, in the bottom 6, I would say Nichushkin, Jost, Comfer, and O'Connor are your locks.
And then 2 spots up for grabs, basically.
And then if they lose Donskoy, they lose Saad, Donskoy.
There's another spot there that could be
Yeah. Like, you would expect Newhook would probably get first crack at any top 6 job that opens up.
Yeah.
If they lose Donskoy, then I would say that that's another job. So we'll see. I kind of mentally, I'm preparing for 4 openings at forward where they can.
And
either it's young guys or they make them outside move.
Right. If there's 4 openings, I would expect at least 1 outside move, but we'll have to wait and see. We can dive a little bit more into that. after our break here, as we are brought to you, beautiful people, by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD-infused coffee that has really changed lives. You get 25% off your first purchase online when you use code DNVR25, or come try it down at the DNVR bar. We got cold brew. You can get the Alley special with, I already forgot what kind of like coffee liqueur she puts in it, but ask her. I'm sure she'll hook you up. Yeah, you can also get 20% off every time you buy when you sign up for their subscription service. And go on over to Illegal Pete's, just a couple of blocks down from the DNVR bar. Have absolutely delicious burritos. I always recommend their breakfast burritos, the steak and potatoes. Wow, absolutely delicious. But they also have a deal going on. Bring in any same-day ticket to any event in Colorado into an Illegal Pete's location, and they will hook you up with special deals, whether it be their house margaritas or it's decent discount off of one of their burritos. You name it, they got you covered. When you're having an event here in Colorado, they just want to feed you some delicious food. And the Colorado XOs. If you want to go to an event here in Colorado, check out Infinity Park in Glendale, as they have a ton of options, whether it be rugby events or a movie night as well. They have you covered. They do all sorts of stuff all summer long. On August 20th, which is a little more than a month away, they have a big Rugby Town Sevens tournament. They also have movie nights every single weekend, I believe, or maybe it's every other weekend. I'm not sure. Anyway, gates open at 6 p.m. for those. Head on a line to Infinity Park. Hang on. I don't know what their website is. infinitypark@glendale.com/events. There we go. I found it, to get updates on all their movie nights and other events going on. It's just a super awesome program. They have all sorts of stuff. I imagine the athletes probably have already left for Japan, but this is also where the U.S. men's and women's team were training. So the best rugby in the country happens in Infinity Park in Glendale. So check it out. Get in there. Have some fun. Awesome events, and kids get in super cheap as well. So go have some fun. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We've talked a good bit about the openings. Is that the expectation? I mean, we can probably get into this as free agency approaches more, but you have to think they've now freed up a little bit of extra cap. Are they going to be targeting a forward in free agency?
Maybe. It kind of depends on what the numbers come in on their own guys.
Yeah.
You know, Makar and Landeskog especially, with it looking more and more like the Avs are seriously looking around the goaltender market and not just doing not just doing the, oh, well, we'll let you know, we'll get back to you, and see, you know, see how things go and blah, blah, negotiating nonsense that they always do. They're really looking into things. The Darcy Kemper stuff has got some heat to it. And if they do that, then there's, you know, there's going to be money lost in any deal that they do.
Yep.
With Arizona, it's not just going to be a first-round pick for Darcy Kemper or whatever, you know.
Right.
So and that's sounding like that's something that they're seriously looking into, and not just making a call for the sake of making a call. So we'll have to see what they actually do, and then we can probably more strongly look at free agency. But for right now, I would say it's not super likely that they go after certainly a top 6 guy. If they were going to go after somebody, then, you know, maybe they really liked Blake Coleman a couple years ago. Maybe they check in on his price. Maybe they check in on what's his face, Barclay Goodrow. You never know. Like they could look for some depth help if they really wanted to, but they're not going to go out and they're not going to put money on their fourth line again. They can't afford to. They have to, if they're going to put money in free agency towards somebody, it needs to be towards somebody that can actually help them, like meaningfully help them.
So you're telling me they made the Graves trade, but we're still in hurry up and wait mode watching the ads.
Yeah, it was the precursor towards them deciding to go 7-3-1 in expansion, which is what they'll do. But after that, they still have to put together a team.
So with the Kemper thing, I listened to 31 Thoughts this morning. They were talking about how Arizona really wants to protect Aiden Hill, and that would leave Kemper unprotected. So does that mean if a deal like that happens, does that have to happen in the next 20? Because there's a trade freeze, roster freeze tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's got to happen soon.
Thing comes out. Yeah, it has.
Yeah, I mean, and if they protect him, if they do that, then obviously they move on from Grubauer. But if they leave him unprotected and he doesn't go selected, then we're right back here next week in the same conversation. So part of that would depend on Seattle too, and what they want to do. If you're Seattle, and we're going to do this on Monday, we're going to do a full mock draft on Monday. But kind of poking through the expansion lists and around the league, is Darcy Kemper the guy that you prioritize from Arizona? I definitely would say he's more interesting than Kyle Capobianco or Ilya Lyubushkin or Michael Bunting. Like, yeah, Darcy Kemper's significantly more intriguing.
Especially if these teams are already circling around him, and you might be able to deal him.
Exactly. And in Arizona looking at Darcy Kemper the same way the Avs were looking at Ryan Graves. Like, we would love to keep him, but if we're going to lose this guy in expansion, then we're going to lose this guy.
For him, yeah.
He's got value around the league. Teams want him. Teams like him. Let's just not lose this cat for free. Let's cash in here and get somebody that we actually like. The hard part, I think, is making these deals. Like, New Jersey made the deal, and New Jersey now has to protect Ryan Graves.
Yep.
And like Will Butcher and PK Subban aren't like, oh my god, amazing options for the Kraken, but
they're not nothing.
Right? Like that was still a decision that they had to make. And so if Arizona does deal for if the Avs and Arizona do have a Kemper deal at some point, they do put a package together. Colorado they can't just take on Darcy Kemper's 4.5 for nothing.
Yep.
There would have to be something going in the other way. You would have to think that it's probably a Comfer type of guy, a little bit of money going somewhere. And then, whatever the actual number, the final numbers end up being. But that's where they would be right now. I mean, and yes, Evan is right. It would have to happen in the next
24 hours, I think, just about.
Like 18 hours, because I think protection lists are due tomorrow midday.
So about midday Eastern would be.
Grace
20
deal
hours
happened around like 7 p.m. last night. So
yeah, and we always joke that these guys always do shit at night.
Yep. They're not a morning crew at
all. They're waking up when Rudo and I are waking up. They're staying up all night watching Race to World First with us.
Exactly right.
They spent the last 2 days waiting for Limit to kill Payne Smith.
And then they made their moves.
Yeah. They got tired of waiting.
Yep.
So going back to the forward talk, I haven't really, I know you guys are probably sick of talking Landeskog. I haven't really given my thoughts considering everything's gone down, but we've talked about it before.
Yeah, fire away.
The unrestricted free agent group just doesn't really do anything for me with the forwards. And so there's nothing.
All guys with huge pockmarks.
Yeah, like when they're talking 7-8 years on Zach Hyman, I'm like, good God, just stay out of this crap.
Yeah. At that point, it's like maybe a 1 year, like $3 million deal for Jaden Schwartz to hopefully bounce back and stay healthy for once.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a hard sell to replace Landeskog, though.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I guess I'll just get into my Landeskog thoughts here. The $9 to $10 million thing that came out today, I have such a hard time.
There's no way.
I just don't buy that at all.
No way he's anywhere close to that number. Yeah.
It just does not make any sense to me that he would be asking for that. Now, if those numbers that came out yesterday, whatever the 4, 5, and 8-year deals were, the 5-year deal, like I feel like if that's the numbers they are offering, then they can figure this out. My concern at this point is now the part that we always usually, maybe look over, and that's the human element, that like emotions are going to come into play here. That Landeskog is frustrated that this hasn't been done. And even if they get close to the numbers, that he's going to be like, well, this should have been done months ago. What took you so long? I'm going to see what's out there. And then at that point, you're competing with everyone out there. So I personally don't have a problem going 8 years to keep Landeskog, because my thoughts are, if in 5 years they haven't won the cup, then things are probably going to look a lot different. And the last 3 years of that deal are probably, the cap's going to look different. Team's going to look a heck of a lot different if this team hasn't figured it out in 5 years. And if they have won in 5 years, then who the hell cares? They won one Stanley Cup. It was worth it. So, and I also believe that he is going to age a little bit better than maybe we think. I'm not as concerned about a huge drop-off as other people. So I really hope they figure this out, because my other big concern is just that locker room. How for years we've talked about how great this locker room is. Everyone who's been in that locker room talks about how great it is. And if you lose Landy, then you lose the biggest part of that locker room. And how much does that change this team? Like everyone else, I'm stunned that this has even come to this.
All right. I do like a little bit of a different take than AJ and I had on maybe the 8-year deal and Landy's aging curve. But I think a good point that you make a dude mad, and sometimes that affects the decision he wants to make.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of this, though, is that, look, if, and obviously it's a big if that dude wants $9 million, man,
yeah, good luck elsewhere, man. Yeah,
he's not asking. He has to know. They teach basic math in Sweden. He has to know that if he wants $9 or $10 million or even $8 million, he has to know he's not getting that in Colorado.
Who can give him that? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
and that's where St. Louis comes in, because they have $20 million to play with.
I see maybe in free agency a team's dumb enough to give him 8. I can't see any team giving him $9 million with the next 4 years of a flat cap, and his production just isn't good enough. Especially, we've talked about the comparables, right? RNH signing for $5 million. You're telling me
they've been almost identical statistical players the last 3 years, and on a point per game basis. And
sure, maybe you can say RNH took a discount, but he didn't take a $4 million discount. Landy's just not a $9 million player based on every contract in the league. So,
yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. As both you and Evan and AJ have put it, even at $8 million, I think you're overpaying for the product that you're getting.
Yeah, at $8 million in a flat cap, good God.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, if that's the case, man, you just can't. You just can't do that.
And this is coming from a podcast of 3 dudes that absolutely love Landy on the abs, but you have to be realistic. Like,
you just can't do that.
Yep.
I mean, even 7.5 is a deep cut. Like, that's you start trying to make it work, but I mean, good Lord.
I mean, based on the numbers from the 4, 5, and 8, making it work is 6-7 years at 6.5, 6.75, something like that. I think that's pretty reasonable for both sides to come to the middle on, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm less worried about this after the Graves deal, because Colorado will have the money.
Yep.
To kind of
make it work.
Yeah, they're going to give competitive offers. They're going to give them a fair offer. They're not going to. All these people, they're lowballing him. I'd be insulted too. Well, if you're looking for $8 million, then $5 million is absolutely lowballing it. But again, Landy's a smart guy. He can do math. He can look at where Colorado is and say, dude,
Yeah.
they just can't do that.
Yeah.
Not with McKinnon's deal up in 2 years.
Yep.
You know, McKinnon's gonna go from 6 to 11 or 12,
if not more.
Yeah, if not more, man. Like it's just no.
Yeah, clearly the Graves deal shows that the Avs are trying to figure this out. Like they're trying to get to the
and they're juggling a lot of things. So you know, like they're all this like, oh, you know, all the just sign him already, just give him whatever he wants. Like there's a lot of things they have to work through to get this.
Yeah. A good point, Cade. If the Avs lose Landy as well, Operation Male Model is definitely dead at that point.
What?
You can't run a group of male models without the alpha male leading them. Okay, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, putting Graves in that sentence is I would not agree with that personally. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're trying to get the money right. But like I said, my big concern is the human element that we often forget. That eventually you get to that point where a guy like Landy, who has now publicly said, I thought this would be done months ago. And I think most of us would agree we thought this might be done months ago, and it's not.
It should have been.
And you just wonder if every day he gets closer to unrestricted free agency that he's just like, you know, I'm going to see what's out there. And
we heard last year when Alex Pietrangelo signed in Vegas that the challenge of a new city and you know, moving his family to somewhere that was a part of why he wanted the long deal. You know, he started to get excited about the idea of the change of scenery and the second act of his career. And when that happened, and then he was gone. There was no getting him back after that. And they're dangerously close to that.
So you're worried that Gabe Landeskog is this meme? Hang on. It's the one with the penguin.
This is a super good meme.
It's not. There we go.
Could be.
For the non-YouTube crowd, it's a penguin saying, well, now I'm not doing it.
If Landy leaves and they choose Zach Hyman and give him turn, then it's just going to be like, what the hell was the point of this? Should have just got...
Just downgrade.
Go pay Landy.
Yeah.
Look, if Landy's comparing himself to Mark Stone, then...
Yeah. There's obviously... If he's asking for $9 million, then that doesn't make sense for anyone. I don't care what team it is. It doesn't make sense for anyone to do that.
Yeah.
He can ask for that all he wants. And if the Avs walk away because that's what he's asking, then I totally get that point. And I wouldn't disagree with it. I'm just saying, if you lose him for the reasons that, you know, he's asking for too much money and you don't want to commit 8 years, then I do think I worry about the trickle-down effect down the line where now you have McKinnon on this sweetheart deal and you just lost your captain, and he's probably going to look at it like, oh, are we really trying to win? You know, I just worry about the trickle-down effect. That's really kind of where it's at. Even if you are making the right decision, not committing $60 million or whatever to Landeskog.
Thank you for the super chat, Carrie, but unless you have a source for that, I'm not going to believe any of it.
Oh, yeah, that's the tweet that Andy Strickland sent out yesterday.
I mean, yeah,
Cool.
all of that stuff, you have no idea how real it is. Like,
those tweets have been just all over the place.
Yeah, they've been wildly scattered.
Like he knew the 8-year deal dollar amount,
but
and
not
then he
the
followed
4
up
and
with
5.
4 and 5-year deal like hours later, and it's like, what is happening here? Like, that whole thing is just weird.
In any case, as we're wrapping up today's show, can we get some final thoughts on this Ryan Graves trade and where the Avs stand in this offseason?
Smart business.
Simple. 2-word answer. AJ, anything to add?
Nope, smart business works.
All right. Call this show the Smart Business Show. We're going to get out of here.
That's
for
why
today.
I have a Twitter account and he doesn't.
Free AJ in the chat, please. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. All of you.
Quick thing. Somebody did ask us if we were bringing back the Be a GM Roast My Roster stuff. We definitely are. It's just that there's a lot going on right now, and there are some things that we wanted to get through. We want to get through the expansion draft first. So I would say
probably that Monday or Tuesday of the following week. Yeah.
The 26th, I think, would be a good time. So start the, we'll start pushing it after the expansion draft next Thursday, but keep those keep your rosters in mind. Late night last night I went through and just started roasting randos.
Doozies.
If one of your rosters was on there,
sorry. Yeah.
Get a better roster.
There you go. So we'll have the roster roast at some point. Until Monday, unless the Avs do something crazy, we will talk to you later.